I guess we did with us. Do you remember any of mine?
Sometimes.
Sometimes we did.
Yeah.
And for dinner we had a huge torn turkey, a tom turkey, stuffed with delicious dressing. Was that dressing good?
Yeah. Was.
There was no this is interesting. There was no celery because we had only the ingredients that could be produced on the farm. But the dressing had plenty of bread, sage, sausage, and onions. And here I was putting in a double portion of onions and celery. Because grandfather could trade wheat to the miller for flour, there was always fresh baked bread. And we always had fresh flour because of the farm. We're still getting money from that farm.
It's a wheat farm.
Wow.
Yeah, $324 this year.
Mm-hmm.
To stretch the food, we were encouraged to take one bite of bread for every bite of other kinds of food. Isn't that interesting? That didn't happen to me. We had choke cherry jelly and ground cherry jam. We had that. We would go out and get the choke cherries, and then we had the cherry tree right there in our yard. It was all so delicious. As I look back on that special Christmas over a lifetime, the most memorable part was that we did not think about presents. And I was telling Karl just yesterday or whatever about my parents. We'd have a stocking that hung on the chairs, and we'd have an orange in there because my father worked at the WPA. That was a
Works Project
work project,
Administration?
yes. And so they would give us a bag of oranges every Christmas.
Oh.
And so I was telling him that. Guess what I got? I can't get over that.
My kids were asking me if you always laughed like that, and I says, I don't really remember.
It's cute.
I like your laugh. I think it's so cute.
Well, I didn't know that I laughed.
It's distinct.
I don't
That's
usually
cute.
laugh like that, do I? Usually.
It's cute.
Uh-huh.
Here, Megan, I'll just.
Oh.
I
Well,
love
anyway,
it.
whatever. I'm full of love at this present point in time. There were no presents that could, let's see. I could not have been happy, let's see. There may have been some handmade mittens or a scarf given. Yeah. My Aunt Hulda always came through with something. And Mother sometimes would make something. But I do not recall any presents. Presents are wonderful, but I found that they are not essential to our happiness. I could not have been happier. There were no presents that could be held and fondled and played with, but there were many wonderful gifts that could not be seen but could be felt. There was the gift of boundless love. We knew God loved us. We all loved each other. And this is President Foss, of course, but that's the way it was at my house also. It made me feel so wonderful and secure to belong and to be part of all that went on. He whose birth we celebrate has told us that all the law and the prophets is contained in loving God and our fellow men. James called this the royal law. We had that in our Sunday school class just last month. The Apostle Paul said, "To know the love of Christ passeth knowledge." In the first epistle of John we are told, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God, and knoweth God." We all enjoy giving and receiving presents, but there's a difference between presents and gifts. The true gifts may be part of ourselves, giving of the riches of the heart and mind, and therefore more enduring and of far greater worth than presents bought at the store. Anciently, the 3 wise men came from afar to bring gifts to the baby Jesus. Would it not be marvelous this Christmas if we could personally give gifts to the Savior? I believe this is possible to do. As we help the sick and clothe the naked and attend to the stranger, we personally give gifts to our Savior. Among these true gifts are some our family shared on that boyhood Christmas. I told you about the gift of peace, the gift of love, the gift of service, the gift of self, and the gift of faith. The message of this season that is applicable throughout the year lies not in the receiving of earthly presents and treasures, but in the forsaking of selfishness and greed, and in going forward, seeking and enjoying the gifts of the Spirit, which Paul said are love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. This Christmas and every Christmas will be richer by sharing and enjoying gifts that cannot be held but only felt.